All right. Hello, I'm Adilmir, your host for Net's live podcast today. Thank you all for taking your time out today for busy schedules and joining Net's live podcast series. And this is our fourth podcast in this series. The topic of today's podcast is Broadband UK and NETS. Here, I would like to again thank all our followers, people who have joined the previous podcast and also joined today's podcast as well. These have been a tremendous success. Thank you all. This is a CSR initiative by NETS International to help the youth and talented individuals to find the right career path and the opportunities for the future. In this podcast, through our expert panels, we'll be looking into the UK broadband market, its present situation in access networks rollouts, NET's role, and the future of this market. Here, I would like to introduce our guest today. First up, we have Mr. Dean Robinson, who is Operations Commercial Manager, FNW Networks UK. Dean is currently working at FNW Networks as an operations commercial manager and has 20 plus years of industry experience. He's been working as a contractor as well as a network operator and within the ISP as well. Working directly with UK operators through collaborations and consultancy, Dean's understanding of best processes, each position from ground and the challenges UK broadband faces. Next up, we have Mr. James Burrell. He's head of PMO for FNW Networks. James is currently been working in the telecom sector for the last over 10 years. He started as an apprentice engineer within the OpenReach working on copper and fiber networks. His current role sees him supporting on the rollout of fiber throughout the south of England. We also have Mr. Chris Sinclair with us. He is principal consultant for CTS Recruitment Training Limited, UK. With over 10 years of experience in building verticals as well as talent acquisitions with some of the leading companies throughout the Northeast, Yorkshire, and Scotland, Chris Sinclair is considered as go-to consultant in building partnership agreements to attract and retain the best talent, ranging from civil operatives, fiber engineers, network planners, and project managers. And moving up to director levels and more. Chris is a regular panelist on various special interest groups, namely with Independent Networks Cooperative Association, the Department of Culture, Media and Sports, and the Department for Work, Pensions, and more. Lastly, we have Mr. Jahangir Ahmad, Group MD and CEO for NETS International and NETS UK. Jahangir Ahmad is a second generation serial entrepreneur who has transformed a well-known Pakistani system integrator national engineers into a global technology services and solutions provider. Jahangir is an electrical engineer from Georgia Tech University and has worked in Sprint and in various other telecom companies as well. Jahangir's vision is to provide employment to the masses by uplifting their skills and abilities throughout through training, skills development, and in line with his vision, he is leading by example through CSR efforts. And this podcast series of podcast is one of those initiatives as well. Jahangir is leading NETS International UK, and he is one of our panelists. So I welcome you all. Welcome, gentlemen, to our today's podcast.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning, all.
So I'll start off, I'll kick it off the questioning from Dean. Data from Ofcom's latest Connected Nations report discovered that 99.7% of households in the UK had access to a decent connection. That is up 1% since last year. But why UK households needs of fiber connectivities or higher speeds in their homes? Do they need them? If yes, then why?
Okay, I think first of all you need to understand what it means by a decent internet connection. So in that report, a decent internet connection means 10 megabits per second, which some of us might think is decent. To put that into perspective, if you were streaming in 4K UHD, which is a relatively standard piece now. 4K TVs are obviously out there. UHD, the World Cup was very recent, which was all broadcast in 4K UHD. That would take a 32 megabit connection to keep a stable connection. So bearing in mind, if you've only got 10 megabits coming in and you need 32 to just watch your TV, you're already going to be facing buffering and freezing of the program. That's obviously only one user in the house as well. So if you now have a family, maybe a child streaming on the computer or something like that, we can clearly see that 10 megabits is just not enough for the basic household. Now, you may say that a gigabit is potentially too high, 1,000 megabits, but 10 meg is obviously far too low. It would be very, very easy for any household to consume 70, 80, 90 megabits per second at any given time. So you need to have that coming in for it to come, for it to then go back out again. So for me, I don't believe that 10 megabits is reasonable.
Okay, excellent. So what you need to understand is that with the advancement of technology, especially content and media, the requirement for broadband has increased. So given the current example of World Cup football, which was actually streamed and presented in 4K, the minimum requirement was 32 Mbps, which means an average UK household with 10 Mbps could not even watch it. Great, Dean. So I'll move it up, move it up a bit on the recruitment side. Chris, this question is for you. The full fiber connectivity in UK is still at around 33%, whereas the targets are about 85% in 2025 and about 99% premises to be connected on fiber. Does that create scarcity of resources, and what challenges have you faced to meet this demand?
Certainly, I mean, regarding the scarcity of resources, I think we not just telecommunications, there's a few sectors struggle at the moment. But one thing I will say, firstly, is that the targets will be met. What I won't commit to personally is those dates. There's definitely a massive skill shortage in telecoms. So prior, I built telecommunications academies, and I'm doing a similar model again soon with NETS. So basically what I normally look into now is if there's a skills shortage, where can we get new people from? So I'm looking currently to trainees, apprenticeships, and other skills boot camps to help ease this, because there is a genuine opportunity for people who want to work within telecoms to do just that.
Okay, great. Which means that you are well on your way to meet the targets. That's excellent. And then, with those targets being met, we can look at Mr. Jahangir Ahmad, who's been heading NETS in UK for the past couple of years. Jahangir, how NETS journey has been in coming from the Middle East to UK. Tell us about the NETS story. How did you come by?
Yeah, thank you, Adil. So to be honest, I've been very pleasantly surprised to look at the potential in the UK market. As you mentioned, the connectivity is right now even 42% households are connected. And as Chris and you mentioned, that 85% needs to be connected by 2025. So to be honest, for a contractor, this is what we can call this like a gold mine, where there's opportunity to go in, work with the operators. But when we came in, to be honest, Adil, we were not able to hire even 2 technicians. It took us about 3 months, and a real amount of frustration that there is no availability. If we get someone, they instead start interviewing us, and the kind of money they were asking was not, market. I mean, they were crazy pricing. So what we retorted to in UK was to hire fresh manpower, train them, groom them, and then blend them with the manpower from UK, so that the capacity building can be done. Because looking at the opportunity in UK and then having no resources with tools and man, nothing is going to work. So the biggest issue in this opportunity was the resources, and this we solved through training local resources, blending them with the UAE resources. And the second part of the strategy was, Adil, that we engaged interested subcontractors who were very small, even a single man company, and we gave them investment for training, we gave them tools, we gave them vans, and we have seen that gradually those single team companies have transformed into 12 teams, 15 teams, Right now, as we speak, Nets grew from 2 teams back in August 2020 to about 45 teams as we speak right now. So you can see it's a 20 times increase, and we want to double it up by the end of this year, 2023. So individual, fresh resources, motivated subcontractors, and giving them the right support has actually made us to become a small to mid-sized contractor in a very short period of time. Now, what we look forward, moving from one customer to 8 customers now, is that we provide further value-added services to our existing customers, including sales for them, expanded civil works, and then doing managed operation for their entire network to be a more useful partner for our existing customers. We are also beginning this year. We are planning to build our domain capability around information security and automation, which is already being. We have customers in Middle East and Pakistan, so that our customers can see us as a one-stop shop. This will help them become more efficient and for Nets to become a strategic partner. And all these things would mean there will be more employment being generated by Nets. There'll be more partners coming on board. So I see a very promising journey if we are able to continue in the same way. And fingers crossed, I think we are on the right path. We just need to keep doing better.
Great, great. On the topic of the rollout, this goes to James. I would take this question to you. How have you successfully done the rollout today, and how do you intend to increase the speed of rollout for the future?
Yeah, so I think when you look back at some of the questions asked to the other panelists, right, around the targets that we've got, ultimately we've probably used existing methods, right? So utilising PIA, which is really helpful to us. So the passive infrastructure access of Openreach, that's enabled us to get a network out there pretty quick. In terms of what we need to do to increase the speed of the rollout, for me, it's getting people in that want to do right first time, so that we're never going back to fix things. We need people that want to work and want to really drive quality in the network and at speed. And then we need to look at more innovative measures to ultimately do things quicker. So whether that's avoiding civils, utilising innovative techniques to make civils quicker, way leaves are a big problem, but ultimately it's about working with the communities that we're in to find the best solution to give them the broadband that they need. But for me, that's really, really important, and is working with the communities and ultimately doing things with the right first time, never going back.
Okay, excellent. Dean, would you like to add something to it?
No, I mean, I think James sort of covered everything there. It is around that right first time approach. It's around. I think the challenge that you've got is there is a necessity to simplify what we're doing, but ultimately this still is a complex system that we're trying to put in at a national level. Now, we can train people, and we have found a need of training people from scratch, but there does come challenges with that. Now, if you went back 4, 5, 6 years ago, you would never allow anyone that hasn't got 2 years, 3 years live network experience to touch any joint out there. Unfortunately, with the market and with the government rollout and how quickly they want to achieve that, unfortunately, those sorts of time limits are coming in. So we're now trying to do what would take so much longer with unskilled engineers. So it's around, at the moment for me, it's around that quality aspect, and it's about the auditing of it. Now, we understand that there are going to be people with less skill in the field. So the only thing we can do as an industry is to audit them better and see what is going in the ground and how it's going in the ground. So it for me, about bringing in new resource, I'm actually more interested in that person's attitude than actually his ability, Because for me, you can be the best engineer in the world, but if you don't want to do the job properly, you're not going to. Whereas if you've got the right job and you the right skill set, the attitude, and you want to learn, they're the people that I want to work with.
Right, right. So on that subject, what are the challenges you have faced in terms of even the contractor, the resources challenges you have mentioned in terms of training and the skill set, but what about the contractor side, Dean?
Now, the issue being is literally just that shortage of skill set, and there is within the UK at the moment there is a bit of a Wild West approach to actually building. There are multiple ISPs out there fighting for land grabs. You've also got people that are overbuilding, so you might have 3-4 ISPs building in the same town, serving the same customers, but building it 4 times. So if the resource was short before you started, you've just made it 4 times worse by overbuilding each other. Unfortunately, though, that's where we are. There isn't like in some countries where you would have towns that are given to companies, and they would be the only people that would be allowed in there. It is a little bit of a free-for-all. So you've got companies out here that are just trying to get their stuff in the ground as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, that's just the industry that we're in. So that biggest issue at the moment is about manpower, because everyone is fighting for that finite amount of resource.
Okay, excellent. So, with that rollout, I understand that OpenReach has helped it. But James, if I may ask for everyone else's information, how has OpenReach helped out? Can you share a bit details on that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they were forced to open up their assets, right? So in terms of the ducts and poles that they've got across the breadth of the United Kingdom, right? So ultimately them having to open those up has meant that altnets like ourselves can utilize those assets. So whether it's ducts in the ground or poles, so that ability has massively helped, right? In 2 ways. One is the speed at which you can deploy, and the second is at the cost, because ultimately if you're not having to dig up every section of road that you need to get to, because you can use existing ducts, that brings down the price point and also enables you to get cables in quicker. And the same with poles. In rural areas, if you didn't have poles, you wouldn't be able to serve those communities at any price point, because if you weren't using poles where you can use 2 poles to span 70 meters, you'd have to trench it, which is obviously costly. There's a couple of other ways. Obviously, that OpenReach have got products that a lot of altnets use as well, from things like cable links, EADs, and different circuits that enable us to get to areas of the United Kingdom that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I think, yeah, there's a couple of ways they've helped, but there's definitely room for improvement, right? As we continue to build at pace, things need, altnets want to do things really quick, and we need people and companies that are building quick as well alongside us.
Okay, so if I may link, you mentioned nets as well. How has your experience been? This question goes out to both James and Dean. How's been your experience with nets?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, obviously, I work closely with nets, right? So a couple of individuals within nets, obviously, and I think for me, the ability to both learn from mistakes is really, really important, because everybody, we're all human, right? So sometimes we'll do things and we'll trial it and it doesn't work, and that's really, really important for me, is that we can both learn from that. But the biggest thing for me is we've got a resource that is able to move around different builds in small areas, and works with us, especially with some of the technology they've got that speeds up their processes, but then in turns helps us. And one of the things I can think of is around the A55 piece. that it was taking them a long time to get them over to us, but they thought they created some software, and it really helps. You know, we're now getting reporting of blockages really quickly, which means we can then go out and clear them really quickly. So yeah, I think for me, just working with Nets as a contractor has been really good.
And would you like to add something to it, Dean?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount to add to that. Obviously, I work with Nets across the build piece, but also customer installations as well. You know, we have found, I suppose, what James has sort of said. It's about that willingness to learn. Ultimately, where we were a year ago to where we are now, Nets is a totally different company. F&W, we have been clear about what we want, and Nets have been up to that challenge, and they've essentially grown with us as a business. So where we're obviously relatively new, we do have skill sets from other companies, but we're trying to ingrain those quality standards within F&W networks, and Nets have been very good to understand that need to improve themselves, and they've obviously grown with us. So for me, it's been a very good experience. And I think the key one is essentially that willingness to learn. You know, you have some companies out there that are set in their ways, and it's sort of that is it. Whereas Nets are very adaptable, and they obviously want to be on this journey for the long haul.
Great.
Can I just add one bit as well?
Sure.
The one bit I was going to add as well is, we were speaking about and Dean mentioned it earlier, about the lack of experience from people new to this role and people that have been doing it years. And I think that's another good bit with Nets as well, is with some of the resource that we've seen is actually, they might not have dealt with the exact cable that we've got, but their experience of building fibre networks elsewhere, and then being able to translate that into building our fibre network, and then help the new individuals to that industry has been really good.
Excellent. So on that subject, we have come up with statements like resources. There is a scarcity of resources, and I would ask Chris about this. So what does UK market needs? ISPs, telcos to look into priority or overcome the scarcity of resources when there are approximately 25,000 new fiber-related jobs are available within the market. How our recruitment company like yours is planning to meet up with these resource demand?
I think I'll highlight what Dean mentioned. Firstly, I think certainly it's more about attitude. For the right attitude person, there's definitely a career path there. What everyone needs to look into is basically new recruits, whether it be from any different sector. I mean, I think currently I've recruited over 500 people from different sectors, so help them certainly start a career in telecom. So there is willingness from companies out there. It's about having the right attitude and everything else. I mean, if we go back to it, yes, I think there's still estimated around about 25,000 jobs still needed out there for the government to meet demand. And I think certainly on every webinar, networking event, or reports I've been into, I think skills and labour is certainly in the top 3 each and every single year. To highlight what James mentioned there quickly as well, is that the main pains is street works and delays and planning and way leave access. That again can be, sorted out by having extra resources for that. So I think the future is definitely bringing people from outside the UK where possible, and training internally.
So I'll link in another, regarding the training. What are the training requirements if somebody is willing to, jump onto this new career or access network or fiber deployment?
Yeah, typically what I built prior for academies is, access to PIA qualifications, so something like an SAO1, SAO2, Streetworks, qualification. Additional things could be handy, like iPath or a MUP, and the various EUSR cards. That's typically the main, starting point for a fibre engineer, which that is where the main pains are for a lot of, clients past and present. There could be several project management that they do have, but when it comes to, the guys and girls on the ground, that's where the main pains have been prior. And then, my progression routes would see, Chris start as a trainee engineer and then potentially make up to a project supervisor in a number of years. And it can happen. I've seen it happen.
Right. Great. Good to know. And if somebody wants to know, somebody starting within this career, what kind of salary ranges do they look around?
I would say typically for a starting engineer, someone who hasn't come from the sector, you could be looking to start and salary around about £24,000 per annum, plus any benefits package, any bonuses, and then that could increase, within a. I'm not going to commit months these days, but certainly with but in a year, that could crease into the 30s very easily for an engineer, for a skilled engineer that could do fibre jointing, repairs, test rod and roping, blockages. There's plenty of work out there for it.
Okay, great, and it varies from region to region. Different regions have different levels of pay scales and things like that. Or
it does, yeah.
Is it uniform?
It does, yeah, and certainly I think that the builds at the moment, the majority of the UK networks are still built in the southern. They are spreading, north now. We are seeing a big need from clients up in Scotland as well, very, very soon. So it is UK wide.
Great. So, Dean, we've been talking about all these jobs available, all these aggressive targets. Doesn't that increase cost for the companies for going massively on rollouts? So does the government provide any kind of subsidies or any kind of benefits to the operators who are actually pushing on to meet these deadlines?
I suppose the answer is yes and no. So it really depends about where you're building and why you're building. So there was a UK scheme, BD UK, where you could get funding for certain areas. Again, there is some other projects that are being rolled out there around the government trying to provide connectivity to the last 10%. So that's the last 10% of homes that essentially people don't want to build to because it's not cost effective. So the government understand that they need to put their money in to help those rural villages and stuff like that need that support from BD UK. But a lot of the towns out there are privately invested. So there are large investment banks around the UK and around Europe that have seen that investment opportunity in the UK. So that is where a lot of this money is coming from. I think the second part of that question was, is it costly to do the rollout as quickly as we are? Essentially, yes, is the answer, because ultimately, if you had a X amount of resource and you wanted to spread that work out across 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that's obviously going to be a lot cheaper than trying to get it all done all at the same time within the next couple of years. And what you are finding is engineers out there, I think sort of you mentioned it at the start when you were trying to get some engineers, and some of the pricing that they put forward was just crazy. And unfortunately, that's the industry that we're in. You've got engineers that are going from company to company. I'm looking at CVs and seeing people that have worked for 5, 6, 7 companies in the last 3 years. You go back 5, 10 years, you would never. I personally wouldn't look at someone's CV 5, 10 years ago that had 5, 6, 7 jobs in that amount of time. I would see that as a concern. Whereas unfortunately now you have to look at those people, and there are people out there that are going from the highest bidder. Something to mention from the contractor side as well, the cost perspective. I know a lot of these contractors are supporting on the training costs, and Chris mentioned the qualifications that you need to have. So work on the PIA network, SA 001, 02, S5, S6, S7, S8, Streetworks Unit 2, the MU PyPath 1Bs, EUSR cards, and that is the basics. Outside of that, you might have confined spaces, you might have then some specific ones for the companies that you work in. So a lot of these contractors have got to spend 2, 3, 4,000 pounds just to get an engineer through the door at the start. And actually, if you've got an engineer that has given you a CV and you can see that he's done 5, 6 companies in the last 4 or 5 months, in the last couple of years, he's done 4 or 5 companies. Are you really going to want to invest 2, 3, 4,000 pound on that person? So there is a huge risk at the moment for contractors to support people and not get that benefit back.
Right. So, having understood these challenges and going forward, yes, there are costs involved. So, I would come back to you, Jahangir. What is next rollout strategy, and how do you overcome the bigger issue of shortage of skilled resources?
Yes, Adil, as I mentioned that the whole aspect of capacity development is the answer to this. Getting fresh people, blending them with technical people, and always have about 10 to 20% more capacity so that you can take up the immediate demand, plus you can address the attrition. That is one way we are trying to address it. Plus, we are building our subcontractors so that they can follow the same practice. And that is really helping out because they see the potential, they see how we are working, and they are trying to emulate the same while we help them financially and so on. The risk mentioned by Dean that people would come in and they would leave and you have spent about £4,000. So people only leave their managers and people. So what I've seen in the last 3 years, our attrition ratio is perhaps less than 2 to 3%. So that's a business cost that is doable. But if it's 20, 30%, then you really go haywire. Um, and we are trying to create more and more opportunities by going to more clients, adding more services, so that we can really increase the productivity of the resources that we're working with. We make more money, we can give more money. They get more skill, we are able to put that more on the ground and make use of that. So I see that, as Dean earlier mentioned, that there will be overheating. There's already people coming in the same areas, but contractors would have to do more with the existing manpower. Let's say even technicians to be doing partially selling as well, although they don't have sometimes the right attitude, but even 20, 30% could create an impact on that. And then doing manage operations for particular areas for a few operators to reduce the operator cost and the contractor cost. So, and the other thing that, like James mentioned, that using the right tools so that people can be productive. Like the tool he was mentioning, A55 is basically a pain point that we saw, that the technicians were taking a lot of time to turn around. There were accuracy issues. So we let the computation thing to be done by the computers, and we did the automation. So tools are also helping out in the productivity. So I see that in the next 2 3 years, productivity and the cost pressures would lead up the contractors to become more efficient, and we can do this with more services, with higher productivity. Like even nets alone, we are trying to double down because we have more customers, we are seeing more demand, and the higher satisfaction of the customer also means that we are getting greater and greater portion of their business. So our answer is capacity building, and capacity building with in line with the requirements that we are getting, and always be 20% ahead, and build companies, contractors with us so that they share the load, they share partial risk, and industry gets to achieve the targets that the government has set, and for them to achieve the business target, they can focus on their business, we can focus on our business.
Okay, excellent. Jahangir, here I took out a word, automation of business. I believe Nets has done something about it. Can you shed some light on it? What kind of automation we're talking about here?
So the automation we're talking about is the business process automation.
Mhm.
So as Jane was mentioning, a blockage reporting tool. So instead of manually filling all the stuff and then sharing with the back office, we can all have it happen through a web-based tool. People taking pictures, then saving, then uploading. It's a lot of hassles. So we are moving more and more processes towards this combined tool. We call it MapX, and we are going to add GIS capabilities so that
Okay.
the location becomes more important. So basically, this is business process automation. And the second tool that we have developed a while ago is called Monitex. So that is monitoring all the active components of the network. So for the broadband operator, the OLT, the ONT, the CPE management, the routers, the firewalls, all will be monitored at a center place so that the operator can be in complete control of the assets. And the third capability in automation we have is we have got the back end, front end database people. So we can take the customer's requirement and build those use cases for the customers so that they can actually realize that deem productivity. And being in this field really help us because we have the functional experts who understand the passive and the active infrastructure to be able to talk the language of both the operator as well as the developers, because even bridging this gap is not so easy. And since we are using all these products on the ground, so this really helps us in seeing these challenges and the um, what you call the productivity on ground. So it's a 360-degree collaborative view which is helping us doing that.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So I'll put in a slight twist to all we've been talking about all fiber and everything, and I'll start James with you. UK also has a 5G network which provides gigabit speeds to the end user on wireless. So wouldn't wireless internet be better at the end users? Instead of putting up all this fiber connectivity to their premises.
I think 5G is good as a backup and as a when you're out and about, right? But ultimately, I'm not a gamer, right? But whenever I read about gaming, etc., everybody talks about it being an issue on 5G connections and things like that. And to be fair, most people have broadband at home because someone in the house plays games, normally kids, etc.
Yeah,
but for me, it's good as a backup, but that's it. And I say a backup because a lot of operators now are looking at if there is a connectivity drop with your existing fixed line, so fiber or copper, then it will divert to a 4G or 5G or whatever connection you can get at home. But yeah, so for me, it's good as a backup, but it's not the answer. The answer is a fixed connection, whether that what we've got at the moment or what we're upgrading to, by far better than 5G.
Okay.
I think we need to.
Sure.
I think we need to also understand what 5G is. I mean, ultimately, 5G is essentially run on the back of a fiber network. Now, what you had with 4G is you had those macro sites out there that used to broadcast the 4G, and 5G is just broadcast by putting in more micro sites around those to widen the area, bringing those micro sites closer to the end user. That is what 5G is. But they are run on the back of a fiber network. It's just bringing that fiber closer to the home. If 5G already understands that the fix is to get the fiber closer to the home, why not just get fiber into the home?
Okay.
And what you then get is obviously that very last bit is obviously broadcast over the radio waves. And the problem with doing that is essentially what James said. I mean, I love Fortnite as much as the next person. It is about having that latency. So that is the bit that gamers are going to be frustrated with, and if gamers are, that means your kids are.
Yeah.
And for me, I want an easy life. I don't want my kids moaning at me about the internet connection.
Yeah, maybe we can run a separate podcast on gaming issues altogether with the latency and everything. We could do that. If we talk about UK, it's been after the Brexit. How do you think full fiber connectivity, is going to help or leapfrog amongst other European countries? If I may ask everyone step by step, starting with you, Chris, how would it help UK in businesses in terms of other European countries?
I mean, massively. I think harking back to everything we've been discussing so far now, the UK has been sadly lagging behind many European countries for many years. Going back to how I first started in telecoms recruitment, I supplied various guys and girls from EU who built their networks many years ago, come over and start the process over here. As I said, the government of the UK are fully committed to investing. I think currently, it stands around about £30 billion of investment for to bring next generation to every property in the UK. So it's definitely serious there. They are committed to doing this, and having a gigabit network enables the UK to compete on many fronts. We talk about automation, that'll help with robotics, cars, EV charging points, and so much more. Really, having stable fiber connections.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Dean, on this one?
Yeah, I mean, if you start looking at where the UK was performing against other European countries over the last 4 or 5 years ago, if we go back to 5 years ago, we essentially there was some minimum criterias to actually appear on the list. The UK didn't even appear on the list because we couldn't make those minimum requirements. Now, what you have seen is steady growth, especially over the last 2 years. But let's not get it wrong. We are miles behind countries like Sweden, Finland, and places like that, Spain, that are up in the 80s and 90% of full fiber deployment. We're still sort of a sub 20% country. Now there is a long way to go, but what you are now seeing is the growth over the last 2 years. It is exponential, and we are now beginning to see essentially us not being the weakest in the EU. You actually see us now beginning to overtake countries like Germany and things like that, but we are still miles behind some of these other countries, some of these countries that you would never believe would have been in front of us. Romania have had a brilliant fiber network for years now. Ultimately we sat on it for a long time. There are challenges in deploying in the UK. I think legislation really sort of goes against us. It is much harder to deploy at speed in the UK than it is in certain countries, but we are beginning to get a grasp. The other issues that you face is it's fine Boris Johnson coming on and saying we want to hit everything by 2025, but actually that message doesn't go down to local councils, the ones that we're actually talking to on a day-to-day basis that are still putting blockers in. So it's for me the best way of moving forward would be actually a government that are actually helping to achieve their own targets. What you're finding is private sector are doing the work to hit a government backed scheme. These private investors are seeing that benefit, which is great for us as an industry and as a country, because I don't think we would have got there without that. So actually back onto the original question, where are we and how are we leapfrogging? Yes, we are leapfrogging slower countries, but we are not leapfrogging those people that are 3-4 years ahead of us. We are just trying to get back onto an even keel. So when we start talking about work, we talk about a 2025 target. Let's not pretend that there's only 2 years worth of work here. We're going to be building fiber networks for at least another 7 years, at least, until you're actually going to be in a place where they're going to be there. You're then going to have installations and stuff like that for a further 10 years after that. So that's 17 years worth of work. And what you're going to find is certain people with these skill sets are then going to move on to different countries that are still going to be behind. So for me, someone wanting to find an industry that they have job security, an industry where you can see at least 15-20 years ahead of you, it doesn't get much more secure than that.
Okay, but another part of it linking to it, James, wouldn't this be an opportunity for people within the Europe? There's a massive expansion and rollout going on in UK. Can this be, work as a more providing jobs and opportunities to people from UK coming on, from Europe coming on to UK?
Yeah, I mean, look, Dean summed it up perfectly in that. Yeah, we might not. We've got plenty of work in the UK alone for 15, 20 years, and that's if everything goes to plan, right? With the issues we face day to day, it could take longer. I mean, the government want 99% by 2030, if memory serves me correct.
Yeah.
But as Dean says, there's going to be other countries out there that will then need to be doing this as well to just keep afloat, not even to leapfrog, but to keep afloat. And then look, we don't know what will happen in 15, 20 years, but my bet is that there'll be another technology that we need to then jump on the back of, and you might even see that at the end of this 5 years that we then start to move on then, right? So I genuinely think that yeah, there's plenty of work, not just in the UK, but in the EU, in the world, right? And then there'll be the next rounds of that technology advancing.
Excellent. So, and linking this to Jahangir, your experience within the UK, as Dean also mentioned, there were some, the government policies are not really friendly, but they are moving towards it. Did you find any challenges while setting up your business within the UK?
So Adil, I think, I mean, working in Pakistan and Middle East, I think one of the best things I've seen in UK is that there is a long-term plan and the subsequent government sticks to them. So I've never seen in the other parts of the world that there is a plan till 2030. I mean, to be honest, I've never seen a practical plan beyond 1 year, a couple of years. So I think that's a great thing. That gives a lot of confidence to contractors and to investors who are coming in the country. Um, Secondly, when we have applied for the UK sponsorship license to get people from abroad, so people were very negative that it will take 6 months, 9 months. It's not possible. A lot of companies don't even hire. They don't even see the CVs if somebody is applying from abroad. But our experience is that the visas are getting sorted out within 6 weeks on average, which is very fast. And even the government has given an exception that the company to company people, so let's say NETS people from Dubai or Pakistan, they can come to UK even though they haven't even passed the English language test. Though those people are not preferred by us because it creates a greater challenge in them working in an English speaking country. But from the government side, I think it was a lot of relaxation that they have allowed the people to, come in. But from the NETS perspective, we want to use localized manpower as much as possible because A, they understand the culture. B, this is where we are working, and it will be even for a longer term. Whoever, um, so we have to keep that good balance. That's part of the company ethos, and it's part of practicality also. Um, Although whoever is coming and immigrating into UK, they have got they all plan to live longer term and become citizens. But a good balance would help in both respect. So to be honest, the only challenge I saw was manpower, and luckily we have so much manpower within NETS and in the developing countries that that wasn't a shortage that could have scared us away. In fact, it is acting to our advantage that we have access to people within the company and access to people in those regions that we are operating in.
Okay, excellent. So, we are moving towards the end of this podcast. Time is a bit short. So, there's one general question, which I normally ask people within the OFC and fiber community. James, I would ask you first. Any trends you want to change or replace within the current fiber industry?
I wouldn't say replace, but in terms of trends at the moment, I think that there's a lot of let's just get stuff done as quick as possible, and we'll deal with the fallout. And I think that is creating issues between altnets themselves, right? And Openreach and others, right? Because what we're seeing is, and I think Dean mentioned it earlier about land grab and just trying to get space really, really quickly. What we need to do is be forward thinking and think, actually, what do I do that builds a network that's going to, you know, that means that others can get on there? Because ultimately, people are going to build anyway, right? So if you're in a town and altnet A, altnet B have decided to build, they're going to build, because by the time everybody knows that they're building, money's been invested, time, effort, procurement, you know, all of that stuff. So we just need to be, I think we need to definitely work better together as an industry. That's definitely one thing I would change.
Okay, excellent. I think we're almost out of time. So here I would like to thank each and every guest. Thank you, James, Chris, Dean, and Jahangir, for joining us today on discussion on Broadband UK and NETS. This discussion has been really insightful in terms of knowing where the UK market is coming from and where it is going in terms of the fiber optic deployment and access network deployment. Yes, we have challenges within the market, but the government is actually trying its best to facilitate not just the new businesses, but also existing businesses in effective rollout and getting fiber to the home to each and every household by 2030. So with this, I would like to thank everyone, all the audience, and I would like to take this opportunity also to, request everyone to keep on following our social media pages, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, where we keep on posting, newer content, posting details about newer podcasts coming in. Thank you very much, everyone, and take care of yourselves and your family. Until next time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
James.
Thank you very much.
Chris,
Thank you, everyone.
Dean,
Thank you,
that's
guys.
right.
Thanks, everyone.